Welcome to Beyond Wealth, Success Unscripted with Matt Calnan. Discover the personal drive, professional journeys, and business strategies that have made a real impact. It's success from the inside out.
Welcome back, everyone. Today we're chatting with Matt Gilmore. Matt works in the insurance industry and has been a part of that industry for the last 20 years. And now Matt runs Lifestyle Protection by Matthew Gilmore. Matt, do you want to maybe just start off by telling us a little bit more about yourself and about your company?
Happy to, Matty. My name's Matthew Gilmore. As you've documented, I've been in the insurance industry for going on 20 years. I was born and raised in Nanaimo on Vancouver Island. I spent my first 23 years out exhibiting the feral lifestyle that the island brings. It's a beautiful thing. A lot of outdoor activities and just the island life. If you haven't lived it, you should check it out. And then I moved out to Lethbridge to go to school. And then I went to school and got recruited into the insurance industry. And then I just never looked back, man. I've had a career or have a career, obviously, got married, had kids, and just haven't looked back. So that's kind of in a nutshell me.
So the insurance industry is pretty broad. Where did you start in insurance and what are you doing now?
So the insurance has a lot of facets to it. So I got recruited into a local brokerage here in Lethbridge, Astro Insurance. The owners, I was a server at the Water Tower, Rick's Grill here in Lethbridge, and the owners would always request me as their server, and so he kind of just recruited me in because I was pretty good at sales and good chatter. And
you upsold them on the wine every time.
That's right, absolutely. Upsell. They're easy targets, but he and so he just saw potential in me, and I never thought about the insurance industry ever because it sucks. And so I got established as a personal broker. So I did personal insurance, home and auto, and it just wasn't for me. And so I switched over to the commercial department and became a commercial producer and started working on commissions. And that's where I really excelled. So 2 years into my insurance career, I switched over to commercial. And then within a couple of years, I had built over $1 million book of business. I took over the commercial department for Astro and started managing it. And then I just started blowing up in the community, sitting on boards of directors for the Lethbridge Construction Association, Lethbridge Soup Kitchen, did a lot of work for the Chamber of Commerce and Lethbridge Real Estate Construction Association, which is now Build Lethbridge. And then, and to this day, I still do a lot of that community work. And so the insurance opened up the opportunity to be more involved in my community because I didn't have a reason really before. I didn't have an exposure. And then obviously with business, it was in order to get in front of decision makers, you kind of have to get yourself out there and start putting yourself in the areas that they play. And so I did that, and I just exploded. Like I was just, the crappy thing, Matty, about the insurance industry is it's all based off of fear, right? And for a guy like me, like I'm a brass tacks guy. I don't like fluff and buff. I don't like pressure selling. I don't like the sky is falling. Insurance to me is hedging your bets, right? Like there's certain things that we have to have. Your liability is important when you're a commercial contractor because you've got premises exposure and there's certain issues that can go down where if you get sued, not only do lawyer fees cost an astronomical amount, but your business is on the line. Your liability can shut you down if you're found fraudulent or any type of gross misconduct. You could just get insurance companies could just deny you, right? So I focused a lot on just bringing a kind of a straight shooter mindset, right? Like it's, for example, my farmer clients, like if you've got a piece of steel that's sitting out in the yard and you're insuring it out the wazoo, like why are you doing that? If it's sitting in the yard, like really, like it's rusty, no one's going to pick it up and carry away, self-insure it. So I bring in what I feel is a common sense approach to insurance. It's not an end all be all. You don't retire off it. It's just hedging your bets. So how do we do that in a smart way that kind of fits the budget, but B, it gives you the security in the areas that you really feel you need it. And then outside of that, own it. Like self-insure, own certain parts of it, because the sky doesn't fall every day. And because I took that mindset and I just did exactly what I said I was going to do. I never overpromise and underdeliver. It's underpromise, overdeliver, and I'm always going to tell you where you stand, right? Like I don't just take stuff or not say shite because my mouth is full of it and I just don't want to hurt feelings. Like there's candor to it, and and so it made me very, very successful as a commercial broker, because my reputation is just untarnished. Like I can be a bit of a prick, but it's for the best interest, because I'm the insurance professional. Yeah. Like you do you and I'll do me, and just recognize that I'll be bringing it, right?
Be the expert in that field. Yeah.
Well, and just the good guy, right? Like I was one of them. I'm a good guy in the field. That's, if I don't have the perfect product, or if I don't have what you need, then I'm just going to send you to some place that I'll do business with so that you can get what you need. I don't need your money, to eclipse my principles and my morals. I just have never, it took me a while to build up my book of business, but because I did it right, it's sustainable. Like you build that type of loyalty, and you just do what you say you're going to do all the time. And I'm human, but every mistake I make, I own, and I try and do my best to repair the damage. Yeah. Right. Whether that's a coffee, or whether that's a pay, or whether that's a check, whatever is needed, then I own it. Right. So for sure. So it's established me as just being one of the good guys in the industry. And then circumstances had gotten to a boiling point with my prior employer, where me being a partner or ownership really wasn't in the cards. And so I needed to start, and I was tired of the property and casualty side of the industry, because it's insuring people's stuff. And so what I got involved in now is I work for a company that's over 100 years old, and all we do is first aid coverage with cash benefits, health coverage. We're a niche in the marketplace. We're the best in the marketplace from what research I've done. And for me, as a career insurance guy, covering people for loss of finances, like when somebody gets injured and hospitalized, and I can step up and provide thousands of dollars to help them get through the recovery period, it's so fulfilling. It's just the most fulfilling job I've done in the insurance industry to this point. Because again, I'm insuring your greatest asset, not your assets, but your greatest asset, which is ourselves, our earning capacity.
Ourselves. Yeah.
So it's a beautiful thing.
That's a good point. A couple things on the insurance world that kind of popped in my mind as you were talking there. And actually, a mutual contact of ours, Tyler, said this to me one time, or I think he might have said it to a group, but he said, and it resonated with me, but he said that insurance doesn't get rid of risk. Risk is always going to be there, but you're transferring the risk to a greater pool. And that's really what insurance is. And I think everybody inherently knows that, but you're not really thinking about it all the time. So, for your example of you have a piece of steel out on the farm, do you need to insure that? Well, what happens if that piece of steel goes away? First of all, it's very unlikely that it's going to happen, but if it does happen, is that a big enough issue? If it is, then maybe you need insurance on it. If it's not a big enough issue, then maybe that's something that you do self-insure on that. So interesting approach sometimes to the insurance world.
But it's our job as insurance professionals we get caught up in all the mandatory stuff that we, this is what I found with my experience. So, we have to have auto insurance, right? That's just a given. If you have a vehicle, you have to, yes, you have to have auto insurance, but what's mandatory is liability. You don't have to purchase a $100,000 vehicle and insure it to the nines and be paying, $700 a month in a vehicle payment and $700 a month in insurance. Like, you don't have to do that. But we justify those moves because we want to have certain things, right? And so it's my job, and because I was in the commercial space, I'd have a lot of new business guys coming in and, hey, I've got this on the go and I need this, this, and this. And I'll give you an example. I had a contractor who did landscaping and snow removal, and he comes in and he says, I'm looking at purchasing this $80,000 vehicle and this $25,000 trailer, and I'm going to get it financed, and so he's going through all these costs. And my question to him was, well, how many contracts do you have in place that guarantee you money on a monthly basis? He says, well, I'm working on that. I'm like, well, maybe you should work on getting a quote for a 15-year-old truck that you only need liability on, and then you just rent tools or rent the equipment that you need. Right. And so that way we can just add that onto your insurance for a limited amount of time for a limited amount of premium. And now you're dealing with maybe $200 a month of overhead as opposed to $1,400, right? Like, and the issue that I run into with some people, some representatives in the insurance industry is they look at that as a payday. Oh, wow. Like, because commissions for me on that, frick, man, I'm rolling, right? But that's gross. Like, you can't sit in my chair and just take people's money. Like, it's gross. People have enough bad taste in their mouth with insurance to, like, you can't do that to people as an insurance agent. Yes, we're here to provide a product and a service, but we're also here to provide expertise. Like, if I know something and have seen something go sideways, it's my duty to the consumer, because yes, I have to play that game. Yes, I'm a representative of the insurance company, but the consumer is my client, right? Yeah. So if I know how insurance works, it's my job to educate you on that. And that's not being fraudulent and saying, hey, if you do this, the insurance companies won't know, so we can get away with this. No. This is how the insurance company acts, because we've seen it time and time again. And so me as an agent, I come to the table and say, hey, be prepared for this, because this is how it works. And it all boils down to wordings. It all boils down to how much value in asset you're wanting to insure. And does that mean you should be insuring everything to its, list price new value or whatever it looks like? And I don't believe in that. I don't agree in that mindset. Insurance is hedging your bets. Where do you find the value? Where do you find the biggest risk and exposure? And then insure for that. And then walk away. Everything else, you better own up to being, hey, if this goes sideways, well, that's on me. But having control over that as a consumer is freeing, right? Because A, as consumers, take some freaking responsibility for where you're at and what you're doing. And B, when it comes to overhead and insurance premiums, they're never going away. So control them as much as possible, because it's not a commodity. It's a needed. Insurance is needed. It's just finding where that need is for you. Yeah. And that's not for me to dictate. That's for me to listen and hear, and then steer you in the right direction.
From the client. Yeah. It's interesting. You just said something, because I was going to say something to you, and then you said actually almost the opposite. So now I'm going to bring this up. Now we're going to have a chat. You said insurance isn't a commodity. I actually think insurance is a commodity, or at least the vast majority of insurance. There's really specialized stuff, but I think it is a commodity. And I think that's what makes it ultra important to have, somebody like yourself. Like, you're a really trustworthy guy. Your clients say great things about you. I think that's a really important aspect to have in an industry that is filled with people that aren't like you, right? I mean, you look at, and sorry to say this, but you look at insurance agents, realtors, financial advisors. There's a lot of people out there that they're all about the commission structure.
Used car salesman.
Yeah, I won't throw you in with that category, but no, I do think that actually makes it even more important to find a person that you can trust in that industry, because if not, you end up with a lot of products that you probably don't need. Like, the number of people that have a whole life insurance policy, and for anybody listening that has that, you need to go and investigate it right now and maybe talk to your advisor about it, because that's a product that should fit like 1 or 2 or 3% of the market. But they're happy to sell it to 80 or 90% of the market because they make really good money off of it. So so again, I mean, it's so important to find somebody that you can trust in an industry that is filled with people that you can't trust, unfortunately.
And I'll tell you why I don't believe insurance is a commodity, because there is a space for that mindset. Yeah. And see, like, insurance is an investment. Okay. So for me, what I insure for is a rainy day, right? Like, it's just like investing. Sure. It's just like saving. It's all about rainy day. And so it's not a commodity because it is I mean, it's required, so it's not something that you just get to pick and choose outside of, like physical damage coverage, but you have to have
some
liability.
insurance is required, not all of it, but
That's right. Well, if you have a motor vehicle, you have to have liability, period.
Yeah.
Right?
Or a mortgage on your house or anything like that. Yeah.
That's exactly it. And see, for that, I mean, that's just smart, because liability wise, like if you maim someone in an accident that turns out to be your fault, well, you don't want to be paying out of pocket if you injure and you disable a 9-year-old child that has the potential and earning capacity of decades. Well, guess who's paying out on that, right? That's so liability. That's a requirement. But where I look at it as an investment is because I believe it's hedging your bets. Like, people don't realize that the percentage of chance that your house will burn down is 0.08%. You've got a 4% chance of getting into an auto accident. Now, it happens every single day in our province. Heck, even in our town, we've got 100,000 people. It happens every single day.
Yeah.
But again, once you break it down to actual occurrence and exposure, well, it's not as great as we're told and bombarded, because we're bombarded with fear every day. And so, and unfortunately, insurance is always going to be an increasing cost, and you're never ever going to get out of it what you put into it. It's not a piggy bank. It's not investing in gold futures or physical silver, where you look at the last 30 years and there's always going to be a value applied to it. But with your insurance, well, if it goes up 23%, you just didn't gain 23% on your principal that you've invested into your auto insurance for the past 20 years and never used it. Like, how many people, I ran into people that were 7 years old and never had an auto accident. They've paid hundreds of thousands of dollars over their lifetime. See, that sucks. But again, that's hedging your bets, because you live your life according to how you want to live it. You don't live it in fear. Or if you do, you should maybe take a look at that, because living in fear, I mean, that's what agents that have skewed principles prey upon. They want you to want to build emotion to get you caught up in the what ifs and the ifs that's, so that they can, now you need this. Oh, no, now you need this. Instead of being like, hey, this could be an exposure. And from my experience, has been an exposure for your industry. So does this seem like it's of value to you? No? Okay, perfect. Sign initial here so that you recognize that me as a professional, I brought this to the table. That's my professional obligation. I've got E&O coverage for that. And so, but it's not up to me to dictate what you have. It's up to you to understand what you value most in life and to hedge your bets to protect from an exposure, taking that away from you. And so again, I don't look at that as a commodity, because you're never going to get the value out of it that you put in, right? It doesn't hold its value. It just gives you peace of mind, so that, hey, if this happens, then perfect. I've got that hedging my bets.
Covered off on that.
That's right.
Yeah. No, it makes
and
sense.
So, and the commodity and that whole the commodity idea is that market fluctuates dictated by supply and demand. And sorry, when I relate to commodities, I think about cereal grains, I think about precious metals, I think about rare earth elements, and all of those bring, it has intrinsic value, and it's tangible because you can hold it. I sell paper promises. That's what insurance is. Here's a piece of paper saying that, yes, you're covered. Hang that up on your wall, put it in your car, feel great about it. Well, you know what? There's nothing to that. It's hopes and prayers that when things go sideways, I can present this paper and be, what do we got? Because that's always what it is. You're never certain what you're going to get from it. And so it's super, super, super important that you deal with somebody that's knowledgeable. And and obviously having experience is great, but if you find a professional that's willing to learn, is creative, and shoots you and has the hard conversations, like that's an investment that you need to make and carry with you for the rest of your life, because it's all about creating a platform that protects your specific needs, not everybody else's, yours specific. And if you're smart enough and you're detailed enough to go through your life and picture that and write it out, envision where your wants and needs are in that commercial space, it becomes easier to justify not purchasing that big, bright, fancy new vehicle to insure it and pay out of the teeth and have a depreciated asset that you're pumping thousands of dollars in a month, until you get to the point where, hey, you know what? I just dropped $100,000 in a vehicle that I drive 2 months out of the year, but I've got the money to do it. So while it's in my garage, I don't care. Or when it's in my warehouse, I don't care.
You're not worried about it.
No, you pay to play at that point, but up to that point,
Yeah.
and you'll find a lot of my commercial network, they're guys that you would never, ever, ever realize are multi-millionaires because they're smart about it. They don't wear the $5,000 suits. They don't drive the $100,000 work truck. They drive the $10,000 worker van, and then at home they've got their 69 Stingray Corvette all chopped up and just looking pimp in the garage, right? Like it's a different way of playing the game, but they've pinched their pennies, they've lived with inside their means, they've driven their business to the point where now, as a personal success, they get to live the lap of luxury. They don't build impressions for the commoners or the consumers to see, oh, look how great I am. Usually you see those businesses fold within 2 years. Like I could write a book.
Not sustainable.
Well, exactly, right? Because it's this big grandiose mindset. Well, no, man, live simply. Ensure the minimum amount that you need to, and then just self-insure the rest. Because literally at the end of the day, if your house burns down, I can guarantee you 70% of the crap you had in your home is irrelevant to your quality of life. Period.
I think more than that, more than 70%.
And so what are we doing? You know what I mean? Like, it's, as a consumer, we've gotten this self-righteous indignation that, hey, I pumped my money into it and it should. No, man. Like, insurance is there for a rainy day. If you're pumping that much money into insurance, like it's a piggy bank, then you need a better insurance person because they're not shooting you straight. They're not giving you hard talks that are not just professional but are personal. And I believe both are required for a professional in my industry. Required, because you have to talk to people. You have to be willing to say, hey, look, man, I don't believe your mindset is going to make you successful. Have you thought about this? That's not easy to tell a guy that's been running a show for 20 years and is in charge of 30 people, right? They're doers. They want you to do as you're told. And so you need to have a bit of a backbone to stand up to those people. And I've just learned that when you do that, it sets you apart from the rest, because you're never going to get pushed over. People respect the fact that you're the professional and that you know what's best for them based on what they're telling you their needs are and what they do. And it's, and the rest falls into place. Like, it's a sustainable business. It hurts for the first couple of years building a book, like starting from scratch, coming from a multi-million-dollar book of business.
For sure,
it hurts, man.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you what, my business is very sustainable because of how I operate as a human being.
Yeah, you build those long-term relationships versus the commission up front. Yeah,
absolutely.
So I do just want to jump on the personal side, if you're okay with going on the family talk here, because we talk a little bit about the business side as well. But tell me, you got a couple kids, right? And I think I know you relatively well, and it certainly seems that the amount of quality time you spend with your kids is a lot higher than a lot of other people in the world. So tell me about that and the importance about the kids and family.
Yeah, I'd love to. It's when people ask me what I do, my first answer is I'm a father.
Yeah,
it's the responsibility I feel most proud of. Like, I never felt I didn't feel that way for the first few years. It was always a task. And I mean, and I'm a divorced single father. I've got my kids 50% of the time. Me and my ex work as well as we can with regards to keeping on the same page with our children. I mean, co-parenting is, it's a beautiful idea, but in practice, it takes
a lot of work, right? It takes a lot of work to properly co-parent. Yeah.
And unfortunately, what I find with a lot of families is that they don't put the kids first. But when you put the kids first, it's amazing how how much easier it is to have that and establish that relationship. And so, I was married for 12 years, and then my wife and I it wasn't working for us. And so, so I've been separated for 4 years, divorced for 3. And when my home got broken apart, one of the big things, and sorry, I don't mean that as like it was some external influence. Obviously, I contributed to that as well as my ex-wife did. That's not, like we made our choice, but what happened was our kids did not make that choice, right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so when we separated, my greatest efforts and responsibility, like my mindset, was being responsible for my children's well-being. And so when I have my children, regardless of the fact that I run my business, and if I'm not selling, I'm not earning, right? So it's tough, but the fact is that my children are the greatest gift that I've been given, and I'm a man of faith, so I believe that there's purpose in what happens in life. And so I'm very intentional with the time I have with my children, because not only do I only get them 50% of the time, but that 50% of the time is broken up into athletics, to scholastics, and to other family members that need to have time with their family, right? Grandmas and grandpas need time with their grandchildren, right? Yep. So that's very important. Family's the most important thing to me. And I'm still good friends with my ex's side of the family. She's still friends with my side of the family because it was an amicable situation. And so we've created an environment where our children, they don't have mom and dad living in the same house, but at least they have a very structured life. But with my kids, man, I realized that when I was working as a broker, I wanted money. I thought money was my freedom, and money was my quality of life. And when I stepped away from that, I realized that actually my quality of life comes from the depth of connection I have with my family and my friends. And it didn't matter how much money I had in my bank account. It didn't matter how expensive my clothes were. I was still striving for something that I thought other people wanted to see from me, right? And so it was a humbling experience going through a divorce and becoming a single father, because it really rattled my cage to the point where I had to start taking accountability for where I was intentionally putting my energy. And when I took a look in the mirror, I was not driving enough of that intentional intention towards my children, my relationship with my children. And so that took precedence, even over my career suffered. Like for the first 2 years my business, because I was juggling my responsibilities, right? Like how do I operate as a single father? And unfortunately I come from a bit of a troubled home where I didn't have a father figure that I respected or could look up to. So it was, I've been winging it, this idea of a father, my whole fatherhood. And so I had to get very, very intentional. And so I just started doing the work, and the work drove me to understanding that there's no greater gift than my time with my children. And there's a few controversial people out there on the net that talk about, one of them, I'll just drop it, was Jordan Peterson. He said that if your children, when they're in their 20s, choose to still want to come and hang out with you and be a part of what you got going on, you've succeeded as a parent. Yeah. And that's I don't make my children's life easy by giving them everything they want. I actually give them the direction and the standard in which they can become adults in the world that they're going to be operating in. And that takes a lot of intention with feelings, emotions, conversations, all that stuff opened me up to being a really diplomatic father, where, my kids, I can't emphasize the worth that I got for myself the day I stepped into being an intentional father, where I sat with my kids, where I listened to my children, where I explained where I come from. And not that I have to justify my authority in my home. Like, I'm dad. Like, I'm very consistent. I'm very routine. My kids know exactly what they're going to get from me. But I was more of a masculine father, where, I didn't show much emotion, and I just kind of directed traffic as what common sense would dictate, with a lot of time not taking into not putting a ton of weight on feelings and emotions being the driving factor for decision making, but recognizing feelings and emotions at where my children are at. Not as, I've already been through, done that, just listen to me. But once I started sitting and listening and hearing them, and then reiterating, hey, this is what I heard. Does that make sense? Is that where things are at? And then the constructive stuff. Well, hey, like, let's try doing this. Like, I see where you're at. And once this intention started coming in, man, like, my relationship, not only with my children, have become on such a deeper level, but my love and my self-worth has become abundant, right? Yeah. Because I can see how much the greatest human beings on this planet are endeared to me, and not because of my ruling the roost, but because I'm a transparent, vulnerable human being that just happens to be in a place of authority in their life. Yeah. And so, like, my son will want to mirror his father. My daughter, in her relationships with men, will want those men to mirror her father. They just, these are natural successions through biology, aging, right? It's just its environment. It's proven. These are just facts. And so if I'm not being intentional, like, and I can't be intentional if all I'm doing is driving my business. Like, that's driving my business is intentional in the times that I schedule to drive my business. And that time, yes, there's times where I book meetings on the nights where the week I've got my children, but that's life. My kids understand that I run a business, and part of that is servicing people on their time, not when it's convenient for me, but I get to limit that, right? I can limit that to just 2 nights a week. The other nights, my kids, I'm running through athletics, where we're spending quality time at home playing board games, or now that it's spring and summer, we're out at the park playing disc golf or fishing, or, doing all that stuff that connects us as human beings, but also as family, right? Like, all these things. And I've recognized that with that change with my children, my friendships are now, I've got amazing close friends, but even on my more transient friendships, where you just kind of network coming and going, that connection up front it's pure. It's on a level of actual vulnerability, as opposed to, hey, this is what I want you to see of me.
Not a facade. You're who you are, genuine. Yeah.
That's right. Genuine. That's exactly it. Now I'm more genuine, therefore making my relationships more genuine. And unfortunately it started with divorce and then truly doing some self-reflection, because I had to own my part. And so, man, it's my children now. There is nothing that stands in the way of me and my quality time with my children, outside of emergencies, like for those that might want to contact me. Like I tell my clients the week I have my kids, if you're just calling me to get something done and I don't answer, well, I'm usually busy, but if it's an emergency, then call back immediately. If there's back-to-back calls, I'm looking, and then I'll return the call. But I don't, my phone is on the shelf when I'm with my kids. I'll check every hour, just a little check. And that doesn't even mean you're going to get communication from me, but I'll check, because it's up to me to prioritize what I believe is priority in my life, especially when I've got my children. And it's the greatest gift that I've ever been given. It's the toughest job I've ever had to live, but it is the most rewarding path I've started down in this life. It's just it's the greatest. I mean, you're a father yourself. Like, it's, how does it get any greater? There's no greater responsibility and purpose given to at least, well, I'll talk it because I'm a man, to a man than fatherhood. There's nothing greater. Nothing.
Agreed.
Everything else is irrelevant. Everything.
Yeah. Yeah. And you strive for the money and everything else with it, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. It's when your kid hugs you, it's worth any amount of money in the world, right?
Well, and Andy, like our kids don't give a shit if we're flipping burgers at McDonald's. They care how present we are when we're there. Do we show up to the games? When we show up to the games, are we belligerent and being, hockey dads or soccer dads, whatever? Or are we showing up and smiling and cheering and being a part of creating an experience for our kids that, regardless of what their memory is going to dictate in 20 years, what they'll remember is dad always showed up. Dad always had a smile. Dad was always helping out. They don't care what you do. They care how you are and how you show up. Yeah. So get it done. Like, for all those single fathers out there, if you're listening, do the work on yourself to show up better for your kids and for your family, because everything else is completely irrelevant. Nobody gives a crap about anything else except for how you show up. And for family members, and if you're responsible and you've got a sense of duty, but maybe you've got some inferior thoughts, or, like the biggest issue that I found for myself was in between my ears. I would self-talk myself into a corner, into a dark space, and then my self-worth suffered. And then, so how can I ever show up? But as soon as I eradicated that and just started thinking in a different manner, which is what we have 100% control over in our lives, is how we choose to perceive things. We get our thought is what we control, period. Everything else is up for question. But all those single fathers, do the work, put it in, because you're not only your family, but your friends need you strong and present. And if that means that you have to cry in front of your kids, then you freaking do it. If that means you have to sit and apologize and own your shit, then do it, because there's nothing greater than seeing a man in his space, confident, humbled, vulnerable, and open and honest. Like, there's nothing more powerful. And I think as men, like, we need to get back to that. Like, we need to own our stuff, and that's okay. Yes, we need to be more vulnerable and open today, but that doesn't mean at the cost of masculinity, of being a man and putting your foot down, or standing up, or having hard lessons, or hard talks. Don't get me wrong, women are there as well. I'm not trying to create a boy versus girl type mindset. I'm speaking on single fathers because that's what I am, and that's what I've lived, and that's what I've been trying to get better at. So I can speak to that. And so I do. Well, I don't know what it's like to be a woman, but I know what it's like to be a man. And I know what it's like to try and to sever that sick cycle that my father figures instituted when I was young. Because if you're not being intentional on your approach, then all you're doing is resorting to your environment and what you've been exposed to, and that's not good. You have to be intentional today. You have to be intentional and do the work to self-reflect. And it's tough work, but it's the most gratifying. It hurts. It's so painful, but it's so rewarding. It's so freeing. Going through that pain, it just solidifies and cements your destiny as a great man. Because that doesn't mean you built this massive structure. What it does is it means you built the character of the citizens of tomorrow. And what is greater than that? Buildings we can take down and resurrect, but
not the people.
Not the people, right? And as parents, we build that into our children. And for me, at 46 years of age, going through the crap, I want my kids to be where I'm at 18, right? Instead of 46 dealing with this crap. And so how am I ever going to make that happen if I don't own my stuff and then become vulnerable with it, open with it, honest about it, not just to myself, but to my family and to my children, to those that care about me, so that I can say, hey, look, like, this is where I was coming from. I now see it because I've done the work and looked at myself, and I need to own it. Whether that's, hey, I won't, you don't have to apologize, but you can say, hey, I recognize that wasn't healthy and I'm going to do different today. You don't have to say, oh, I'm sorry, and oh, I was bad. No one cares. But you know what people do care about is you being honest with yourself. Hey, that's someone I'll follow. That's someone I'll listen to. That's someone I'll walk beside, because they're willing. They're just freaking willing and curious. And if your children are watching you be willing to do different, are curious to change, and are just transparent with your journey, like, isn't that turning knowledge into wisdom? Isn't that being able to then inspire the next generation to heed the warnings and the historical negatives? Not because we're telling you what you should do, but because, hey, I'm showing you what it's done to me and what it's taken me to get over that hump. And you don't want to do that. I've already done that work, man. Like, I'm telling you, you don't want to go through that. And so that's going to bring more weight than, oh, I did that and it didn't work. Don't ever do that. And then bring down the hammer, right? It's a different day and age. Absolutely. But we've got the information now, whereas as single fathers, as dads, we don't have an excuse to do what our dad did. Because let's be honest, it wasn't healthy, right? That's toxic. Well, sorry, I experienced toxic masculinity because when I stepped out of bounds, I got beaten back onto the path. Well,
that's not good for a child.
Well, it just makes you emotionally retarded, right? You don't know how to deal with what's happening internally. So then what I found for myself is I was either happy or I was angry. That was my scope. So we're either having a party or it's go time, and for a Gen Xer like myself, that's exactly what it was. You're either having fun or you're fighting, right? So like, there's another F thrown in there, but that's for another podcast, another day. But
not on this one, Maddie. Not on this one.
But it was all escaping mentality, right? It was all about trying to live in some fictitious reality, because getting self-worth from how other people perceived me was greater than how I felt about myself and how I loved myself. And so again, back with the kids thing, like that, I had to learn to love myself again so that my children could see how that works. Not because I tell them, but because I'm actually doing it.
So I want to just jump back to the business side a little bit here, Matt, as well. And for somebody that wants to follow in your footsteps or take the path that you've taken, whether it's in the insurance world or some of those other related worlds, what's one piece of advice that you would say, this is what's helped me most in my career? This is what's really got me to where I am.
Be genuine and don't chase the money. Chase the service the client needs from you. If you service your clients, the money will just automatically come. And the thing is if you're not struggling and uncomfortable with where you're at, there will be no change. There will be no level ups. Without struggle, there's no you cannot possibly progress into something better. And the reason why we feel pain and the reason why we should struggle and feel uncomfortable is because it allows the breakdown of those preconceived notions and barriers that are basically programmed into us through exposure to the world. Right. And so insurance is one of the greatest industries because we get residual income, meaning that if I've got clients for 30 years, the amount of money I make off those clients over that lifetime is just exponential. So you do the work up front by, hey, maybe that's just, I sell you one product today because that's where the budget fits. That's where you're comfortable. That's where you see the value. But then it's my responsibility. Hey, 6 months, a year down the road, we need to look at this because I believe the value's here for you. This is the exposures I've seen other people where they've capitalized on this coverage. Is that a concern for you? Great. It'll just come. Service your people. Don't ever put someone else's money in a space that is worth more than your ethics, morals, and principles. Ever. Because it'll ruin you. And people will find that out. People will just find that out. So be genuine. Don't chase the money, but service the hell out of your people. And he who has the most contacts wins. So network, man. Just network. Get out there. Get uncomfortable. Or be a part of the solution, man. Get out there and be a part of committees. Go and be a part of, get on boards of directors and like they get
Volunteer.
uncomfortable. Absolutely. Volunteering is the most important part. And network will come. Like I'm not, let's not fool ourselves. Like when you're running a business, you need to get exposure. But you'll find that when you start volunteering and filling up your cup by servicing the community that you're earning from, the rewards are endless, not just for self-worth, but the money. Like it just comes. Like that could be in 5 years, but you will not, you won't even fathom where it comes from. And don't put energy in trying to figure that out. Just show up and do what's right because it's the right thing to do, and be genuine. Just be you. People are buying you. The product is, everybody can get the product. Well, except for my product, because there's only one company that offers it, but I'll hire you. You come on, sit down, I'll recruit you in.
Because it's not a commodity.
It's not a commodity, man. It's a hedge against your bets. It's an investment.
So Matt, if people wanted to connect with you, where would be the best place to go?
You know what? I'm not, I don't have a website. I've got some Facebook, so you can hop on to Matty Gilmore on Facebook. I've got my personal page, and then I've got Lifestyle Protection with Matty Gilmore. Facebook, you can reach out to me at 403-892-8515. That's 892-8515. I'm always open for a conversation. I'm not a pressure sale guy. Everybody, and sorry, I'll put a plug in here. Everybody should have a coffee with me to see what I do, because it is unlike anything else in the marketplace. It is the best in the marketplace. And we're the only company that will pay for the loss of time with children and stay-at-home moms. We insure people that don't even earn a paycheck. It's just unlike anything else. Have a coffee with me. I'm not a pressure sale guy. If you like it, great. If not, so be it. Maybe you know someone that does.
Perfect.
So that's the plug.
Yeah, thanks for your time today on the show, Matt. Really appreciate it. Really enjoyed it. Pretty cool insights onto the single parenting side of things, because I think a lot of people go through that, and there's a lot of challenges to it. So I'm sure a lot of people enjoy those insights. But thanks for your time today, and we'll chat soon.
Hey, thanks, Matty. Appreciate you, pal. See you, folks.
You've been listening to Beyond Wealth, Success Unscripted with Matt Calnan. Want to be our next guest? Visit beyondwealthpodcast.ca/guest. See you on the next episode.